Back in the Wild West, people dealt with hygiene challenges without modern comforts. Today, let's dive into their fascinating yet somewhat unsettling practices. In a world far from today's conveniences, women would clean their faces with river water. Imagine being in the Wild West, where dirt was everywhere and it was tough to stay clean. But how did people deal with this constant dirt? Well, the clever women of that time had their own ways. Every morning, they went to springs or streams to wash their faces and drink water. However, there was a problem. There was little privacy at these water spots, and they couldn't take full baths often. So, splashing water on their faces was the best they could do to stay clean. People went to the bathroom in outhouses that smelled horrible. When people think of the Wild West, they usually picture cowboys and Western movies. However, it was a time without modern toilets. Instead, they had outhouses, outdoor sheds with holes in the ground. These outhouses were pretty unpleasant, with bad smells, lots of bugs, and no toilet paper. In fact, toilet paper didn't become common in the West until the mid-1800s. People had to use leaves, corn cobs, or grass as not-so-great alternatives. The smell was so bad that being near one would make you feel sick. Lysol was used as a cure for many infections. Back in the day, when people didn't talk openly about personal problems, there was an unusual solution: Lysol. Yes, you heard it right. Lysol, originally meant for cleaning, ended up being used for personal hygiene. Women dealing with discomfort used it for various issues, including yeast infections and even birth control. Surprisingly, they didn't know that Lysol had harmful chemicals that could be more of a problem than a solution. It took a while for society to realize how risky this was. So, the Wild West wasn't just adventurous. It was also a tough time for people dealing with health problems. Bars were filled with bad-quality liquor and towels full of bacteria. In the wild days of old Western saloons, where liquor flowed freely and adventures abounded, a hidden and unsettling truth lurked beneath the surface. Folks would venture into unknown territories, stumbling upon ramshackle saloons notorious for serving a notorious concoction called rot gut liquor. This brew was often a mishmash of poor-quality spirits capable of leaving drinkers feeling queasy. If that wasn't eyebrow-raising enough, the bar rail sported towels ostensibly for mopping up beer-soaked beards. Unbeknownst to patrons, these seemingly innocent towels were actually teeming with germs and filth. Families bathed in the same bathwater. Back in the early Wild West days, having a bathtub at home was a real luxury, something not everyone could afford. The hassle of hauling water, heating it, and filling a tub kept most folks tubless. It wasn't until Sears, Roebuck, and Company dropped their mail-order catalogs in 1894 that affordable tubs became an option. Even then, a Sears catalog tub would set you back nearly $800 in today's cash. As more homes got their hands on tubs, families would take turns using the same bathwater to save on the legwork. That's how the Saturday night bath tradition came about. Everybody wanted to look sharp for Sunday service. It was common to sleep in bug-infested beds made of straw. Picture a time when beds were nothing more than straw and hay piles, with no fancy bed frames to lift them off the ground. It might sound wild now, but that's how things rolled in the past. Comfort was kind of an afterthought because, even though straw wasn't the coziest, it sure beat sleeping directly on the hard floor. But here's the catch. Keeping these straw beds clean and bug-free wasn't easy at all. They were basically bug motels, with critters of all kinds finding their way into those haystacks. The surprising truth behind infrequent showers in the Wild West. Out in the wild American West, staying clean was a whole different ballgame. Pioneers and cowboys had this weird idea that too many showers could actually mess up their health. They thought it would make their pores a playground for germs and sickness. But let's get real, it wasn't easy. Clean water was a rare find. So many folks just gave up on regular bathing. Turns out that reluctance came with some pretty gross side effects. Cowboys rocking the same outfits every day ended up battling stubborn fungal infections that thrived in all that dirt. Most people didn't have toilet paper. In the Wild West, folks had to get creative with bathroom stuff because there was no toilet paper for a long time. They used corn cobs, ripped up magazines, and catalogs. Medicated paper by Joseph Gaiety showed up in 1857, but it was single sheets, not rolls. Roll-style toilet paper came in 1890 with a toilet paper holder. Real toilet paper didn't hit its stride until the 1920s. Wild West bathrooms were pretty unconventional. Unbelievable medicines of the Wild West, from cocaine to aspirin. In those grimy times, hygiene was a luxury and sickness was everywhere. But pioneers had some unexpected fixes. Imagine a cowboy with a toothache. Their go-to was cocaine. In the 1880s, toothache drops with cocaine were all the rage. It worked like a charm, numbing the pain and giving folks a break from dental agony. With no clean water and lousy waste disposal, diseases ran wild. These medicines were a lifeline in a messy world. Whiskey was often drunk in place of a meal. When we think about the Wild West, we picture cowboys chowing down on hearty grub by the campfire. In reality, the pioneers' diets were pretty basic. They would chow down on beans for a whole meal and even make a meal out of whiskey at times. It's safe to say that looking after their health wasn't their top priority. Even when they had decent food, the shortage of clean water and unsanitary kitchen conditions made their meals a breeding ground for illness. Clean water for drinking and showering was hard to come by back in the Wild West. Having the luxury of running water was like chasing a mirage. As the United States pushed westward in the 1800s, most places didn't have fancy water setups. While folks in settled areas had irrigation and filtering systems, those venturing into the wild had to say goodbye to these comforts. Taking showers, brushing teeth, and getting fresh water were uphill battles. Rainwater was often their best shot, as staying hydrated and clean were tricky tasks that didn't happen daily. The struggle for sanitation and proper bathrooms was real. Indoor plumbing reached big cities like New York as early as 1842, but the Wild West lagged behind. By 1920, only 1% of homes across the U.S. had indoor plumbing. Most country homes out west relied on hand-pumped water. Bathrooms resembled modern-day porta-potties, and a lack of proper sanitation made basic hygiene a struggle, leading to unsanitary living conditions and potential health issues. Cowboy bandanas served more than just a stylish purpose. They could protect against overwhelming smells. Wild West cowboys and cowgirls used bandanas practically to shield themselves from harsh winds, blazing sun, and poor hygiene conditions. Limited clean water and infrequent baths meant bandanas helped keep dirt at bay and reduce the spread of germs and odors. Most men in the Wild West had long and dirty hair. For them, haircuts were rare because they were constantly on the move, leaving little time for grooming. Their long hair symbolized their travels, but also hinted at how long it had been since their last shower. Hair often became unclean, reflecting the rough conditions of the time. The deadly toll of disease in the Wild West was significant. Illnesses like dysentery, smallpox, measles, influenza, cholera, mountain fever, and scurvy claimed many lives. Cholera was particularly widespread, often spreading through contaminated water. Poor hygiene and scarce clean water made staying healthy a daunting challenge for pioneers. Live shows were breeding grounds for germs. During the 1800s, Buffalo Bill's Wild West show was immensely popular, but hygiene was challenging behind the scenes. Performers and staff struggled to stay clean amidst dusty arenas and crowded campsites, which became germ playgrounds. Even churches like the Old Mission Church in New Mexico suffered from low hygiene standards, turning them into hotspots for disease. Mercury was used to combat syphilis during an epidemic in the Wild West. Patients applied mercury ointments for years, enduring severe side effects like ulcers, tooth loss, and kidney failure. Health treatments were often harsh and dangerous, reflecting the terrifying medical realities of the time. Soaps were made with animal fat, water, lye, and herbs. While basic, these soaps got the job done. Women's hair care involved products like lard soap, whiskey, and castor oil. They even used pencils to curl their hair creatively. Barbers were influential figures, offering grooming advice and promoting cleanliness, though their products and methods were sometimes questionable. Oral hygiene consisted of pliers and whiskey. Toothbrushes were rare, and dental problems were solved by barbers or blacksmiths extracting teeth with crude tools, often using whiskey for pain relief. The filthy truth behind Hoover Dam's transformation involved the Colorado River's polluted state. Mining, factories, and garbage dumping made the water unsafe for drinking, washing, and farming. The not-so-fresh reality of cowboys and their horses revealed that hygiene wasn't a priority. Cowboys rarely bathed, which affected both themselves and their horses. Germs and health risks were everywhere, as pioneers unknowingly spread diseases due to poor sanitation and hygiene. The Wild West had an obsession with chewing tobacco and spitting, a practice that led to unsanitary conditions in saloons. Laws were eventually enacted to curb spitting in public spaces. Transmitted infections were rampant in saloons and brothels. Venereal diseases spread quickly, with dangerous treatments like mercury and boric acid exacerbating the problem. Staying healthy was a luxury few could afford. Alcohol was used as a cure for illnesses in the absence of proper medical care. Cleanliness was often ignored, and alcohol became a common remedy for ailments. Men were often dirtier than women in the Wild West. Women with better access to water through indoor chores managed to stay cleaner. Meanwhile, men worked outdoors and faced constant exposure to dirt and dust, making hygiene a greater challenge. The Wild West's untamed hygiene practices highlight the struggle to maintain cleanliness in challenging times. While we're far removed from those days, we can still learn from the past to appreciate and improve our present-day hygiene practices.